History is filled with weapons that reshaped civilizations. Swords, cannons, tanks, nuclear bombs. But just as fascinating are the weapons that never saw the battlefield, yet came close to changing the world forever. Some were too ambitious, others too bizarre, and many were doomed by the limits of technology. Now we explore the strange world of unrealized weapons, the machines of destruction that could have rewritten history, had they worked.
Imagine a weapon so powerful it could scorch cities from space. During World War II, German scientists drafted a plan for an orbital mirror, an enormous satellite positioned thousands of miles above Earth, designed to focus solar rays into a deadly beam. Newspapers in the 1940s dubbed it the Sun Gun. The design called for a concave mirror nearly a mile across, made of metallic sodium. In theory, this mirror would concentrate solar rays into a blazing point, enough to ignite ships, cities, even forests. Engineers at the time speculated it could have been completed within 50 to 100 years. The Sun Gun never left the drawing board. Nazi Germany was already collapsing under the weight of war, and constructing a satellite the size of Manhattan was far beyond 1940s technology. But the very idea foreshadowed modern concepts of orbital solar weapons, and it still sparks debate about how close humanity might be to turning space into a battlefield.
During the darkest days of World War II, Allied forces faced a nightmare at sea. German U-boats were sinking supply ships across the Atlantic. Long-range air cover was desperately needed. But what if the solution wasn't steel or concrete, but ice? Geoffrey Pike, an eccentric British inventor, proposed building a colossal aircraft carrier out of reinforced ice. The plan, known as Project Habakkuk, involved mixing ice with wood pulp to create a material called pykrete, stronger than concrete and much slower to melt. The idea was serious enough that the British built a prototype on a Canadian lake. It was over 60 feet long and took months to melt after the test was abandoned. A full-scale version could have been 2,000 feet long, carrying hundreds of aircraft and virtually unsinkable. But the challenges were immense. Building such a giant floating iceberg would have required resources greater than those used for the Manhattan Project. And with the tide of war turning, Project Habakkuk was quietly canceled. Still, it remains one of the most bizarre and ambitious weapons projects ever conceived.
Long before Nazi superweapons, Imperial Russia dreamed of giant machines. In 1915, engineers designed the Tsar tank, a massive tricycle-shaped vehicle with two front wheels nearly 30 feet tall. The idea was simple: crush enemy defenses by rolling right over them. The Tsar tank looked like something from a steampunk nightmare. Towering wheels, a central body armed with cannons, and a rear stabilizer. On paper, it was unstoppable. In reality, it got stuck. The massive wheels sank into soft ground, leaving the tank hopelessly trapped. Engineers tried to salvage the project, but it was eventually abandoned, rusting away in a field, a monument to misplaced ambition. The Tsar tank symbolizes the risks of thinking too big. Instead of revolutionizing warfare, it became a cautionary tale about the limits of technology and terrain.
In the closing years of World War II, Japan developed the I-400 class submarines, the largest ever built at the time. These were not ordinary submarines. They were underwater aircraft carriers designed to launch bombers directly from the ocean. The plan was bold: attack the U.S. mainland with surprise raids using aircraft launched from beneath the waves. Each submarine carried 3 planes in a watertight hangar with a launch catapult on deck. In theory, fleets of these subs could strike anywhere in the world. But Japan completed only 3 before the war ended. None saw combat. Captured by U.S. forces, the submarines were studied, then scuttled, to prevent Soviet inspection. While they never fulfilled their purpose, they foreshadowed the era of stealth weapons and nuclear submarines.
Germany's fascination with wonder weapons produced another monstrous design: the V3 cannon, also called the London gun. Unlike traditional artillery, it used multiple explosive charges along its barrel to propel shells hundreds of miles. The gun itself was enormous, over 400 feet long, embedded into the hills of northern France. Its goal? Bombard London continuously from across the Channel. But it never lived up to its promise. All Allied bombers destroyed much of the site before it could be fully operational. And even when tested, the shells failed to achieve their intended range or accuracy. The V3 stands as a grim reminder of how desperation can drive innovation to extremes that rarely succeed.
Not all experimental weapons were colossal. Some were surprisingly small and alive. During World War II, the United States tested bat bombs, thousands of bats, each carrying a miniature incendiary device. The plan was to release them over Japanese cities at dawn. They would roost inside buildings and moments later, ignite. The tests in New Mexico accidentally set fire to a hangar and several vehicles. The project showed promise, but was eventually scrapped in favor of the atomic bomb. The bat bombs remain one of the strangest, almost weapons in military history.
Not all never-built weapons are ancient history. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union explored a concept both brilliant and terrifying: a doomsday machine. An automated system that would guarantee global destruction if the USSR was attacked with nuclear weapons. Unlike traditional deterrence, this system removed human choice entirely. If sensor detected incoming strikes, it would automatically launch a retaliatory arsenal, ensuring mutual annihilation. While the Soviets never admitted to completing such a system, evidence suggests versions like the infamous Dead Hand may have existed. The very concept terrified strategists, raising ethical questions about whether a weapon designed never to be used might still doom the world.
Each of these projects shares a common thread: ambition colliding with reality. Some were too costly, others technologically premature. Yet they all reveal the same truth: humanity's endless drive to outwit, overpower, or terrify the enemy. Weapons that never existed still shape our imagination because they represent crossroads in history. Had the sun gun been built, would space have become a battlefield decades earlier? If Project Habakkuk succeeded, would naval warfare look entirely different today? These what-ifs remind us that history is not only about what happened, but what almost happened.
In the end, the world was spared from many of these strange creations. Some might have been devastating, others perhaps useless.
but their stories remain vital, showing us the edges of human imagination, where science meets ambition and ambition often meets failure. As we move into the age of AI, drones, and cyber warfare, it's worth remembering not every superweapon will succeed. Some will remain forever on the drawing board. And perhaps that's a good thing. Thank you for watching Archivist Tech. If you enjoyed this journey through history's unrealized weapons, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Because sometimes the best stories aren't about the weapons to change the world, but the ones that almost did.